Hi, I'm Graham Standish. I am the Executive Director of Samaritan Counseling, Guidance, and Consulting. But more importantly, I am the Director of our Caring for Clergy and Congregations program. And as part of that, we not only offer clergy coaching and spiritual direction, but we offer resources for pastors and churches. And so we're offering you this video especially to help pastors and churches that have had to switch to streaming their worship services. I've become very familiar with the whole process of streaming because back in 2008, the church that I was serving went to streaming all of our services, and then in about 2012, went to high def streaming. And so I'm not only familiar with the whole technology of it, but I'm also very familiar with the things that are important to do and not to do when you're streaming. Now, this is a special video for those of you who are doing streaming during the coronavirus situation, because I think there are things you're having to do that just trying to figure out streaming is hard enough, but there are things you need to do with your worship service that may really make a difference for your members. So I really have 5 different ideas for you in this short video. Number 1, keep your eye on the ministry you're providing, not how difficult it is. It is difficult. This whole situation is difficult. But the reality is you are offering streaming because you are trying to help people in their lives get through this situation, but also get through life. If your focus is on how difficult the streaming is, on how difficult it is to set it up, that's going to impact your ability to lead people through this time of crisis. So I'm really going to encourage you to think about it as this is just part of your ministry and you're adapting to it the way you've done everything else. Number 2, the second thing, when you are putting together your streaming service on Sunday morning, or even if you do it recorded the week before, don't try to replicate your regular Sunday worship service. It's just too long. Your regular Sunday worship service, it's too long. And here's the problem when people are watching stream services. They understand it if it's live and there are people there in worship. They understand you're doing a worship service for the people who are there, and these people are just looking over their shoulders. But in your situation now where you're often doing streaming or recordings in an empty sanctuary, it really ends up with people watching you being encouraged to have a short attention span. Because quite frankly, people will not be generally sitting down to watch the streaming. But instead, what they're going to do is they're going to have it on in their kitchen, or they're going to have it on in another room, and they may be doing other tasks while your worship service is going on. So if you do a really long service, they're going to have their shorter attention spans, and you may be encouraging them to listen to the service or watch the service while they're doing the dishes, sweeping the floors, doing their laundry, or fast forwarding through the things that are long and don't engage them. And so they're just watching you in tiny chunks, 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there. Now, I'm going to suggest that you shorten your worship service to about 35 or 40 minutes by cutting out the parts that normally require participation. Calls to worship, hymns that are sung together. It's nice to include them, but they're probably not going to go along with you, but instead they may try to fast forward through them. Keep your eye on the ministry you're offering. Don't just try to replicate your regular worship service. And I'm going to add a third thing, which is simplify your service. Think about what's essential. Now, if it were me, here are the essential things. Doing the announcements, offering some kind of opening prayer, whether it's a prayer of confession or a prayer of blessing or something like that, offering scripture, offering a sermon, offering a benediction at the end, and then offering some kind of music. Now, What I would do is cut out the hymns. They don't need to see you all singing the hymns. They don't need to be engaged in responsive readings. And what you really need to be careful about is wordiness. We live in a culture where people get tuned out by wordiness. Just in the same way, if I talk too long, which I may have already, you'll be tempted to tune out of this video. So if I was going to script a potential shorter worship service, this would be it. Welcome people and do announcements. Then do some kind of a prayer, opening prayer, which might have a confessional part of it, which might even include a silent confession. Offer a word of some kind of pardon. Then move into some kind of music, an anthem or something on the organ or piano or whatever you normally would do. Then do the scripture and the sermon, but as I said before, try to cut down your sermon. Oh, I'm going to say that in a second. And then do music afterwards, and then do prayers and a benediction. And a thought you might have is send out an email to your members to invite them to send in prayer requests for Sunday morning so that that can become part of your prayer. First thing, keep your eye on the ministry you're offering. Second, you don't have to replicate your regular worship service. Third, simplify your worship service. Fourth, think about your sermons. Simplify your sermons to get across a simple message with supporting thoughts and stories. If you make it too complex, which you can get away with a complex sermon in a sanctuary where people can't get up and walk out. But if your sermon's too complex while they're watching it at home, they'll tune out. They'll just may do other things while you're preaching. And it really lessens the impact of what you're saying. So, also, you don't have to keep talking about the coronavirus in your sermon. They know what's going on. Instead, just remember to do sermons that help them deal with their faith, with their anxieties, with their fears, with their frustrations, and emphasize things like God's love and God's presence and how God has always been with people in these times. I do have a thought for you because you may have already moved to, well, what about the children's sermon? I'm going to suggest you do a separate stream of your children's sermon. Do a children's sermon separately and maybe offer that as a separate stream or a separate recording so that families can have just a children's time of 15 minutes where the kids are focused in on that. And you could do one of two things. If you're streaming, do the children's sermon first and invite people to tune into it at a certain time and then tune into the worship service at another time. Or if you're recording it, offer the recording at one point of the children's sermon and a recording of the regular service at the regular service time. Either way. Fifth thing and final thing, and I already mentioned this, invite people to offer prayer requests so that you can pray specifically for what's going on in your congregation. I hope you find this helpful along with other resources that we offer, and I really do appreciate you giving me the time to share this with you. And I'm going to close with a prayer of blessing for you. Holy and gracious God, I pray that you would bless everybody here watching this video so that in this time of crisis, they can find Christ. In this time of fear, they can find faith. And in this time of struggle, they can find your presence. Amen. And thank you.